What is happening, guys? Welcome back to Redbeard's Garage, and on the last episode you saw us build a mini swing arm for a mini off-road go-kart. We installed a brand new 1-inch live axle from Go Power Sports, sprocket and rotor, and got it installed on the go-kart with the Predator. Now we're going to continue on with making the brake system as well as the roll cage and get this thing finished up for Christmas. So I hope you guys enjoy.
Jeepers, mister, you're really strong.
So we have this Manco style throttle cable from Go Power Sports. So it has a ring, and this is made to, you can use like a 1/4 inch, 5/16 or a 3/8 bolt and bolt it to your pedal. So when you pull your pedal, it'll in return pull the throttle cable. And this is for a standard carb. That's why it doesn't have like the tip on this side. If you was using a Mikuni carb, it would have a little, very small little nipple on there. But this is just made for a standard carburetor, which we're running. This is way too long. I always get the long ones because you can cut them down, of course. It's hard to add to them. And you got a threaded rod here for adjustment, but I don't want to modify nothing. I don't have to modify. This pedal is already set up for a ball type throttle in, like this. So I'm going to show you how to real quickly adapt this to a ball type. So if you use the links in the video description, you can buy these brass solder on throttle ends. They're for like bicycles and stuff. So we're going to use some cutters, and we're going to cut our cable, our eyelet right there. Make sure this don't flare any. Then we can slide on our ball. One side is like beveled out and one side's flat. The flat side goes on first. Then what we do is flare that end out and pull it back up. And then we're going to just going to set that aside, and we have a ring terminal in this pair of vice grips, and it's filled with solder. And I don't have any flux. I wish I had just some flux paste, but this is flux core solder. So what I'm going to do is heat this up with a torch, dip this in to get new flux, and then once this is liquefied, I can take this and dip it down in there, and it's going to solder that cable 100%. Again, it would be a lot better if I had some flux, but I don't have any. You can buy flux at any, I mean, there's Radio Shacks at some places. I think some Best Buys may have it. Any electronic store will have some flux. So you see the flux is around. So you can see there we have a soldered on end, and this would be a lot stronger again if we were to use some sort of flux on this, but I don't have any, so this will have to do. And we'll test it, make sure it's good and strong, and we have a adapted throttle cable now. Super simple. Now when we go back to cut it to length, once we get it ran up and see how long, all we do is very easily do it one of two ways. You can mark it and then pull the cable out from the pedal side, pull it all the way out, cut it with a Dremel, deburr it a little bit, and push the cable back in, and then we can cut the cable down the length. And to keep your cable from fraying, you can either TIG weld that, just take your TIG welder and just blip it on it, or you can dip it in solder, which is what they've done. I'm gonna have to get this in the old bracket. I'm gonna have to cut a very small slit in it to be able to slide this cable through and push it in, adjust it out. We'll put it in mid travel and then tighten it down, and then we can do the engine side. Once we get this done, we got to figure out brakes, gas tank, and roll cage. And this is done. I put these shocks in the stock location. You can see this is kind of, there's no tires on the front, but still the frame is like this. I like it not quite flat because I want it when it squats to be flat. So I might have to move these tabs up here. What I'll do is I'll leave these tabs and add 2 new tabs like I did here up here, but I'm probably gonna have to do that because I just don't like that look of that aggressive pitch. But it's coming, it's turning out really good, and I'm just trying to figure out how I'm gonna do the brake master cylinder. The Phillips head right here. Then we have this little eyelet that we use a 10 and a Phillips head to loosen. So now, since we're having to trim our throttle cable, we're gonna set it up here and see how much we're gonna have to trim. Now I've already marked mine right here and already cut the rubber housing off of it. So now you can see it's like a spring inside there. I'm gonna take my Dremel and I'm just gonna very lightly nick one ear of that until it snaps. And then I can cut the cable down the length. All right, so we got that cut down. Every new Predator, Tillotson, whatever, this 10 is going to be super tight and not let your throttle work like it's supposed to. So you're going to have to loosen that. And when you do the first start, you can see we got the housing of the throttle cable held down with this clamp. We ran it through that eyelet, and when you tighten down that Phillips head screw, it pushes down on the cable, and we can cut this cable off up here somewhere. But when you first start it, put it up on blocks, because when you're putting this on, this throttle moves once the governor gets engaged when the engine starts. So you need to adjust that with the tires off the ground when you first start it to make sure it's idling as low as possible. You can put the air box back on. I can trim this, and then our throttle is hooked up. We'll go ahead and give it a test. Now this has a throttle stop, so it only lets the throttle barely move. And you can adjust it so your kid doesn't have, you know, if he's not used to any kind of power, you can kind of ease them into it. And now we can put our air box back on. Get over that. All right, so this go-kart originally had a cable-driven like disc brake system. So I have made this bracket that bolts onto the engine plate and converts the cable to hydraulic. I know this might look complicated, but it's extremely simple. So just took a piece of 1/4-inch plate. I always make stuff like extremely beefy because I know this will never wear, bend, or whatever. But I did 2 tabs, a tab on each side of this brake master cylinder. This is a Go Power Sports. I think it's like an 80cc master cylinder. Links will be down below. But I put tabs on each side of it, and then made me a 1/4-inch tab that stuck up. And basically, there's washer spacers in here. I'm using lock nuts on everything so I can tension it just enough so everything can move. So now the cable will go in this ferrule fitting. These are crush fittings, so when you put the housing of the cable in here, there's a little metal eyelet that'll bite into the actual exterior of the cable surround. So the cable will stick out this and go to this eyelet that I made up years ago. This is a throttle eyelet, you tighten up this bolt and it pushes on the cable. So now when you hit the brakes, it'll pull this and actuate that. Now this is not exactly a 1-to-1 ratio, so there's 1 inch from this to this, so 1 inch from the pivot point to where it pushes the master cylinder, and I did 1 1/4 here. Now if you need more leverage over the brakes, like if you don't have enough pedal leverage, you can go higher on this. The higher you go, the more leverage you'll have over this master cylinder. The only problem is you got to worry about also how much travel you have of the pedal. So I only went a little bit more leverage, 1 1/4 to 1 inch. So 1 inch from this to this, 1 1/4 from this to this. So we have more leverage with the pedal over this master cylinder. So the best thing about this is I've drilled and tapped bolts, bolt holes in the engine plate. So 3/8 bolts will go through here and bolt to it. So if he ever wants to change it up, put a different master cylinder or something, he can. This is just something to get him by. Now I could make this look even better by doing some nice trimmings on this, but I don't have a lot of time on this. So I did trim this one down and curve it, but later on maybe he can go and grind these corners down and stuff. But again, we're trying to get this done by Christmas. Went ahead and TIG welded it. It didn't need to be TIG welded, but I did. So we can bolt this on and get his brakes done. So if you have a Chinese go-kart and it has a bolt-on roll cage, it comes with these little washers that are notched for tubing, and they're super handy. I've always stole them off any cart we build a roll cage on. We normally don't do a bolt-on roll cage, but this customer wanted it because of his son hasn't really rode a go-kart before, so he wants to pull it off and set right here and ride it with him. So, you know, customers always right unless they ain't paying, then they not right. You pay and you shall receive, you know what I'm saying? You can find links to stuff like that gator bit I was using, or gator tool I think it's called. It helps you to drill a straight hole through a piece of tubing. Super handy, you just clamp it on the piece you're working on. This was a 75 degree, this was a 15 degree bend. I've explained in other videos. I'll do a video soon on how to come up with a roll cage with minimal tools, but we're not going to go in that today. Bent a 20 degree bend in this, and now we got to see where to notch it, or yeah, notch it to make it fall in to that. So you can see if we bring this down, the more we bring this down, the closer it's going to get to this. So this is a hard kind of trial and error. I did 10 inches from the start of the bend to the end of the tube when I made this, so I can copycat it and just repeat the process on the opposite side. But basically it's going to be something like that, land into the cage. Then where this lands in, it's going to come forward so far and bend straight down and bend again because of how this lands in here. Normally I don't do a bend right here, but I'm going to have to on this one. So yeah, so we'll get this trimmed down so it'll set flush. Huh?
You should use your Centurial tools. There's a fire. There's a fire.
Oh, you're on fire! You're on fire!
There's the next windshield bar, whatever you want to call it, in front of the roll cage. So we did a 45-degree bend and a 45-degree bend to make this. It had to have this little nose area. I don't like roll cages that are like this, but this is the way this was designed already, and I'm not trying to do any other work. So this is in place. We're going to cut this one and notch it to match that one. And then we can tack these into place, and then all we have left is the eyebrow bar and the gas tank, and this is completely done. We can do a first start on it, and we got the brakes bled. We came up, I think I showed you guys this mechanical mechanism that converts it over to hydraulic. That's going to work good. He'll have to do some adjusting on it over the next few weeks of the kid riding it, because the cable will stretch. You know, you could have a little air pocket to get back in the brakes and stuff, but for the most part, she's done. So we have this bend set up. We can lay that on top of it, mark it all out side by side, do the notch, because it's only one double notch here. We notch the side and then notch this ear off down here to clear this. And there's actually a tiny bit of a gap because we could have notched a little less off that, but we didn't. I'll fill that. You'll never notice it was there.
It's the cutest little thing.
Yeah, it's a cool little go-kart. When we're welding this all together, we want to make sure stuff fits really smoothly, not tight and pressed into place like a normal weld on roll cage would be. Because when I weld it out, it's going to tweak and twist. So this might not be the easiest thing to take apart, but this is the only way to do it. Because what I would suspect would happen is once his kid's used to it, he'll probably get this powder coated, and he'll probably bring it back, and I'll TIG weld this to these bungs so it's a full weld on roll cage. That's what I would do if it was my go-kart personally for my kid. But people don't care about their kids these days. Guys like, come on, man. What a jerk. So we're just gonna lay this on here, get these lines lined up. These squares came with these quantum tables, get them both pushed up against it. And now we know that if we cut this the same, cut that off there. Start the notch right there. These should match up perfectly. So whether you're TIG welding or MIG welding, you always want to make sure to clean off any scale, grease, or grime, because that's going to be most of the quality of your weld, other than your technique, is going to be how clean your surface is. I was taught when I first started welding the bad ways first. Like, don't clean the rust off, it'll weld through it. But in reality, your weld could look good and you think it's strong, but that porosity inside your weld is going to make it weak, and you're going to have a weak roll cage at the end of the day. So make sure everywhere is like, I'm going to get up there and clean the cage where it's going to meet, make sure it's the cleanest, and then I'm going to wipe it down with acetone because I am TIG welding it. And TIG welding especially, you have to have it cleaned or it's going to bubble up and you're going to get a lot of porosity in it. Right on the table. Ooh, hot. Top to bottom, a lot of sweat.
We're down to the gas tank.
Yeah, I'm gonna quickly, because we're pretty much out of time and it's Christmas, I'm gonna throw, these are Go Power Sports like mini bike gas tanks for really small mini bikes. So I'm putting a 3/8 bar or 3/16 barb, and all we're gonna do is run 2 pieces of flat stock across from this and just bolt it down real quick. This is just a kind of last minute thing. We was gonna put a bigger gas tank, but I'd have to TIG weld some aluminum brackets to it and brackets to this. So I'm gonna just put that off for a little bit. And like I said, a couple pieces of flat stock, 4 TIG welds, 4 holes drilled, bam, bippity boppity boop. This ain't a ton of gas, but plenty for a kid. It ain't like he's gonna be driving it to school and back. Actually, we don't know what he's gonna do with it. Ain't none of our business. As long as the check clears, you know what I'm saying? She ain't gonna leak anytime soon. It might, I don't know yet.
Soon after.
Oh, when you let that screw out, it's gonna fall.
Yeah. It's like 4-year-old 35 miles an hour down the road.
Dang, test pilot. All right, drive forward and test the brakes out. Test the brakes. Probably needs that pillow track to loosen up a little bit. I mean for him, not for Cole. Full bore! Dang, freaking NASCAR, baby. It's like governor. You can govern it more, but she already scoots for out of the box performance. Burn the road up, Bridget. I don't think we've unleashed enough power yet.
What?
Does the brakes feel all right? Guys, I hope you enjoyed this real quick Christmas build for a friend of ours. This actually took us start to finish 18 hours. We did it over a couple days because we had stuff to do, finish up Christmas shopping and stuff. So I'd work on it for 4 or 5, maybe 6 hours one day, and then the next day I couldn't work on it straight because it being Christmas week. But I think it turned out awesome. He may have some more stuff done to it on the channel later on. This was just to get it to him because they had this go-kart sitting around forever. So I think it turned out awesome. The roll cage looks awesome. Swing arm looks awesome. It does need aligned and a few little things tweaked out of it, but I think it's pretty sweet for a tiny little go-kart. So make sure to check out those links in the video description. Go Power Sports supported a ton of parts on this build, and I think it turned out great. This kid's going to love riding this thing around, and it's awesome to make someone's Christmas that much better. So make sure to check out those links. Show some love. We have an awesome year planned for you guys. We can't wait to show you the content. We're going to be finishing up all leftover builds from last year, including the supercharged buggy finally. We're at a point now where we got the garage set up and we got good hands working for us and stuff. So I can't wait to show you guys what we have in store for this year. I think it's going to be the biggest year for our channel. So thank you so much for supporting us and giving us so much love over the years. We hope to continue to do this for many more years. And God has blessed us tremendously in this, and we can't wait to see where he takes us. Thank you guys for watching. We love you, and God bless.